Welcome back. I want to talk about empathy. Because, well, a few things about empathy is it's not a superpower. It's really not. I'm an empath, you hear all the time, don't you? I feel things on a deeper level than everyone else, and that makes me special. Bullshit. Absolute crap. Most people have empathy, if not everyone. There's even an argument psychopaths have it to a degree. That's why they're so dangerous. Empathy it's important, very important, but most people have it. I do think that maybe there are different levels of it. Well, having said that, I go back and forth on this. I was thinking, do some people feel things deeper than others? Perhaps that's true. People, sensitivities and that, but maybe that's not necessarily something they have. It's more that their surroundings have enabled it. So, for instance, maybe they've been through a lot. So, because empathy is often learned by experience as well. Because when you go through a horrific fucking time, say a bereavement, for instance. We all go through bereavements, don't we? When a friend or someone we care about goes through a similar bereavement, we can empathise because we know how it feels. We know because we've been through a similar situation. It's not exactly the same because every situation is unique and every relationship is unique, just as individuals are. But empathy is not a superpower. In fact, a lot of the work that I do with people in counselling and therapy is to recognise if your empathy is being preyed upon, because there are people, vampiric people, as I've spoken before, that it's like they spot it and they can see it and they will manipulate it and they will use your empathy against you. I said to someone once, it was a situation like this where she was clearly, her empathy was being used against her. A particular person, not a very nice individual, knew about her empathy and would prey on it to get what his needs met above hers, right? That is preying on her empathy. And I said to her one day, she was talking about this, she said she wanted to explore empathy with me, so we spoke about it. And I said to her, what makes you think everyone deserves your empathy? Which is a really valid question. Not everyone does deserve your empathy. Empathy is something, it can be leached upon and preyed upon. So we have to be very, very careful about it. That's why I think boundaries are so important. And I know I go on about them all the time because it's a big, big part of therapeutic growth is to recognise where your boundaries are being abused, because a lot of people do abuse boundaries. And when you get to that point of being very boundaried with yourself and your time and your energy, you feel so much better. Like it's therapeutic in itself just to put walls up. Not to the point where you rob yourself of experience, but you don't, a situation, for instance, where a lot of people get this, they'll be asked to go to, say, a party, perhaps. In fact, this is a particular family thing that happens a lot, and they feel obliged to go because it's a family event, right? I get that. I understand it. But they shouldn't go. If they really, really don't want to, especially if it makes them uncomfortable, you should never, ever, ever put yourself in a situation that makes you uncomfortable for the sake of others. I just don't agree with that at all. I really, really don't. Because you're going to go, you're going to feel miserable. You might have, some people suffer social anxiety a lot and in crowds and things, and something like a wedding would wipe someone out like that. And yet they make themselves ill, mentally and emotionally ill for a week just because they're obliged to go. No, a true decent family would understand that person can't cope with that situation. So yeah, and I'm so sick to death of hearing this. I'm an empath. I can't stand that label. Again, well, you know that I'm very, very anti-labels anyway. I think labels, we're human beings at the end of that's about it. We're all individuals. We don't need all these bloody labels. And empath is just another one. It's ridiculous. I even think mental health now has become a label. I was talking to someone the other day about this. I think in the workspace that can be abused. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we all have mental health just as physical health. It's the same thing. Sometimes our mental health is poor, sometimes it's good, but we have to work on that and take ownership of it. It's not for anyone else to do. So, yeah, empathy is not a superpower. I'm sick to death of it. And in fact, I would go so far to say, I think anyone that claims they are an empath, I'm an empath, is, I'd be concerned about that, because not everyone, I'm not saying everyone, because some people are nice people, but some people that claim to be an empath are actually not very nice people, and actually we need to be careful, I think. So that's what I wanted to say today, really. Also, we had a discussion, I remember back in when I was studying years ago, we had a discussion about can empathy, the whole discussion was about empathy, and it was about can it be learned or or is it inherited? And I think we came to the conclusion in our little group that we perhaps thought that it was both. Because I remember being very, very, very young and having an empathic understanding when others were hurt. You know, I understood, and I get this kind of like I can almost feel it. You know, and that's again why empathy needs boundaries, because that's not healthy either. If you go around being too sensitive and feeling everyone else's stuff, like that's going to scramble you up inside. So you really need to work on those boundaries with that, and I had to do that. I think sometimes perhaps my empathy was being abused years ago, not now, of course. I'm very, very boundaried, but yeah, empathy is not a superpower. It, you know, everyone has it. So take care.